There's a new bad boy in town. On this edition of Test Drive, we take a look at the Dodge Challenger. But no ordinary Challenger is this. This is the Hellcat.
When the Challenger was reincarnated in 2008, it was fashioned after the 1970 model bearing its name. For 2015, Dodge has refreshed the range and used the 71 edition as its inspiration. The changes are subtle, new front and rear fascias that feature the 71 split grille and tail lights, but nothing too dramatic, although the Hellcat and its exaggerated air openings do make it look really nasty. Now, this is not to say the changes are not for the better. Everything else takes an enormous step in the right direction.
As for the exterior, the interior of this Hellcat is fashioned after the 71 Challenger. Now, it does come together very nicely, but the one thing I really did learn to appreciate is the SRT and its apps. Now, this thing allows you to set the car up, but there's one particular page that gives you details on the engine. It gives you boost pressure and how much horsepower you're churning out. Well, when I went to pass a slower car, dropped from 4th to 3rd, nailed the gas pedal, it lit the rear tyres up, and this thing was telling me I was putting out 693 horsepower.
The Challenger SRT Hellcat is a hellion. The numbers tell the whole story. The 6.2-litre V8 produces 707 horsepower, but it doesn't stop there. At 1200 RPM, the Hellcat is making 411 pound-feet of torque and on its way to a peak output of 650 pound-feet. This gives the Challenger tyre-shredding performance across its entire operating range. I've driven some fast cars, but this thing, in terms of raw, unadulterated kick-ass performance, is one of the fastest. Dodge says it takes but 3.6 seconds to run from rest to 100k. Frankly, it feels faster, especially through the mid-range when the 6-speed manual gearbox is along for the ride.
This enormous supercharger that sits on top of the engine is the equivalent of a 2.4-litre air engine that requires 80 horsepower to drive it when it's producing peak boost of 11.6 psi. Go figure, in spite of that enormous draw, it still produces incredible horsepower.
In terms of handling, the Hellcat is nicely balanced. Flogging it through the pylons with the Hellcat's adaptive suspension set in track mode, it devoured the course with minimal body roll, controlled understeer and very good feedback from the steering. Mind you, it took a sensitive boot to pour on the power, even when the traction nanny was switched on. In cold weather, the back end would go walkabout very easily in spite of the 275 40R20 tyres.
So how much of a bargain is this Hellcat? Well, if you go out and buy a Porsche 911 GT3, you'll pay over $300 for each of its 475 horsepower. If you go the Corvette route, around about $146 per horsepower. When you come to the Hellcat, believe it or not, it'll cost you just $90.51 for each one of the stallions under the hood.
Perhaps more impressive was the brake performance. The Hellcat earns 15.4-inch two-piece rotors with 6-piston Brembo front calipers. It is as though the driver tosses an anchor out of the window, such as the bite when the system is hammered. The impressive part was it did this time and again without fading into oblivion. No, the Hellcat is not a Porsche 911 GT3 in terms of its outright ability, but it sure did a very credible impersonation of a car designed to be driven seriously hard around a racetrack.
Normally, when you talk halo car, you talk an awful lot of money. Now, this car really is a halo car for Dodge, and with the cost per horsepower, well, it makes it entirely affordable. The really good news, however, the Hellcat is not a limited edition model.